Okay. Sorry? Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
You can. Oh, good. Good. You can probably hear me even better now. Okay, well, I think we've got all we're going to get of a quorum. So I'll call the meeting to order. And first item of business is approval of the agenda. So before we do that, there are a few changes to the agenda. Because Nancy's added some extra items. What were the two items, Nancy? One was the annual Heritage Conference is going to be this year. You've put it back on. So I added that as 7.6 to discuss the attendance of that. I guess that's probably it for the journey. Yeah. So can I have somebody move approval of the agenda?
Chairman?
Thank you, Paul.
I'll just 1 minute, just a moment.
Yes,
just a moment. I'm just wondering if we should have on the agenda Ron's resignation, if the committee wanted to receive that.
Okay. Yes, you're quite right. We should acknowledge his service, and it's unfortunate he has some health problems and he can no longer meet with us. So I've sent him a personal message of thanks for his service with the committee, and sorry we're going to miss him. I'm sure you will join me in confirming that. Everybody's not in, so that's good. Thank you. So the first item is I'm just going to say that the changes to the agenda then are under the 7.4, the Plaque Designs. Nancy's suggesting that we look at that in more detail. So we'll discuss that when we get to 7.4. And there's an addition of 7.6 to discuss the annual Heritage Conference, which will be June the 16th to the 18th in, where is it, Nancy? Brockville. Yeah.
Sorry, Brockville,
yeah. Are there any other changes that anybody wants to suggest for the agenda? If not, I'll ask for somebody to move approval of the agenda as amended.
I'll approve, make a motion.
You're making the motion? Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Susan.
And I'll second.
Second. Thank you, Robert. And all those in favor? Seems to be carried. So any declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature are?
Oops, I've lost myself.
You've moved.
Dave, I'm not sure if I should declare a pecuniary interest in the heritage process, the heritage permit process, because I do own a heritage property.
Well, I'll ask Paul to comment on that. Personally, okay. I don't think so, but I'll ask Paul as member of staff to respond to that, if you would, Paul.
Or, well, it really is up to the person who makes that declaration of pecuniary interest to satisfy themselves in that regard, as opposed to anyone policing it necessarily. And I think, you don't have an application in for reconstructing a heritage home, so you're not really subject to the process at this time. So I think there's some leeway here.
Okay.
But ultimately, you need to feel comfortable with your own judgment on the matter.
Okay, all right.
Good enough, Nancy?
Yes, I think so, Dave. I think.
You can think about it till we get to that point, and as you decide when you get to that point, we can consider whether you want to participate or not. Is that
Okay.
okay?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Everybody else comfortable with that?
Mhm.
Okay. So then somebody will move adoption of the minutes of the last meeting, February the 14th.
Okay,
Okay, Nancy's
And I'll second.
second. Thank you. All those in favour? I think that's approved. There's no delegations as far as I know, and there's no correspondence as far as I know. So we're good on both of those. So we come to the heritage permit application and guide. So you've all had a chance to read that, and I wonder if there are any questions or comments.
No,
I have a couple of things.
Nancy?
Okay. What did I do with my notes? Oh, okay. So it says examples of external works that usually require a heritage permit. So some of it, like I'm sorry, I'm reading off my iPhone, which is very tiny, and I should have written the notes out earlier. I apologize.
Would you like me to read it, Mr. Chairman, to Nancy? Would you like me to read out?
No, I can see it now.
Okay.
Okay. It's changes to cladding and roofing and painting and building exteriors. So the painting aspect of it, I just wondered about this, about those items, because unless they're really a part of the reasons for designation, how can we ensure that that's something you need a permit for? And there were decks and fences was another example, as were windows and doors. So it doesn't say if they were original windows or doors, or whether they were later replacements, or whether they were cited in reasons for designations. So I'm not, it seems to be a barrier for people with heritage properties too. And then further down below, it's examples of work that generally do not require a heritage permit. And it was interesting about the repointing of the bricks. So there's right ways and, good practices and not, And so I would, maybe repointing should have been an example of something that could, for example, sandblasting is not a good practice for brick, but it's been used, and all of the original pointing has been, concrete has been used to do the repointing, which is harder than the actual brick. And in time, this damages the original brick on the building. Do you know what I mean, Paul?
I do, yes, yeah.
So I know these are just examples that were used, but anyway, just addressing that example of the external works would satisfy me, you know.
Okay. I think through the chair of the committee that some of the external works, it would be good to make sure that people who are doing external works or proposing to do external works first confer with staff to determine whether they need a permit. So you're right that if they're doing some trim work and it's just fascia being replaced with similar fascia, then that's probably not much of an issue. But in doing the trim work, they're affecting the cornices and that sort of thing, or the width is changing significantly, and the fascia soffit is not really consistent with the original design, and it was exhibited attributes of the architectural design of the home itself, then that would be probably an issue. But so going back to your point, that it all relates back to the attributes for which it was originally identified and designated. So it might be easier to say, in the event that you're doing exterior work, please consult with staff to determine whether you're affecting the attributes of the characteristics for the original designation. I think there is an emphasis on pre-consultation elsewhere in the guide here, but yeah, you do get into some dangerous territory when you start having lists of things that are applicable or not applicable, because there is a bit of a gray zone there. But if like the repointing of brick, yeah, you could damage the brick, and even the mortar that between the bricks has to be of the same chemical affinity, because there are some heritage buildings that have been kind of ruined by putting the wrong type of mortar over the old mortar, for example, and things like that. So I agree with everything you're saying. I can change some of the wording to be more clear, and that it's best to relate back to the attributes. But this is a very general thrust as to what would be considered applicable and not applicable works.
Well, it is a good point. It does bring the property owner in for consultation over it, and that then can be decided. And as you say, it's an example of, and okay. Thanks, Paul.
Oh, you're welcome. I can maybe visit some of the wording in there if the committee's okay with giving me that latitude on this, and see if there's some refinements in there. I can emphasize the heritage attributes is something that we have to always turn back to and confirm with.
In the form, we're talking about properties. So we have a few properties that have coach houses and that, and some of the properties have gardens, formalized gardens and informal gardens. Are they going to have, if they're a historic garden, are they going to have as much protection as just as we formalize the property has a formalized garden and somebody decides they want to tear a brick the whole thing and get rid of it? Do we want to suggest they consult us first, or I know we have very few properties that are acknowledged as having gardens, but is that going to be?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we could make mention of trees can be a designated heritage feature on a property if they have a historical cultural event associated with them, so yeah, we could and probably should mention certain landscape features. And again, you know, like the wording on the second last bullet point of the examples that do not require a heritage permit, the second last bullet point says unless these are ornamental and integral to the heritage character and appearance of the building. So I think maybe there could be more unlesses in the top paragraph. And so I'll make a revision to include some wording regarding trees and landscape features of historical nature.
And I think that could tie into the people that are talking tree protection and tree promotion, replanting here in Brighton. That in the spring and that we want to protect what remains of the maples and birch groves and stuff like that. If they're on historic properties, we've got a double protection. Because people seem to be interested in the trees in this community, and we've seen the success of the transplanting and the replanting program over the past couple of years, and the wait list. So I think it's another community building idea to support people's initiatives with a bit of historic heritage too. Thanks.
If I may say, I kind of disagree with that. I think it's maybe getting into another area when we're talking about, certainly when we're talking about gardens. Trees is possibly an issue, but I'm not sure it's wise to mix it up with architectural concerns. I mean, what we're talking about is buildings and preservation of buildings in terms of heritage conservation. I'm not so sure. I think we're possibly, anyway, straying into another area, that possibly is a concern. Possibly some people in the community would like to do that. If we were going to look at it at all, I would like to sort of couch it. I would suggest anyway that we couch it in terms of if an owner wishes to include garden type features and trees in the designation because they wish to see that preserved for perpetuity. That's one thing. It's quite another for the municipality to be deciding that they want to look at properties in terms of heritage trees and so on and so forth. That's just my opinion. Obviously, I can't speak for the whole committee, but
yeah, I can see your point. That's why I'm bringing up in this as a last point. Property heritage properties are what, maybe 10% at most of all the properties here in Brighton, and so it's a small percentage of concern to a certain amount of people. So if it's mentioned, it's mentioned. If it's not, we can rely on maybe common sense.
The chair
Properties. So
through the chair of the committee, I'll make reference to I think the Heritage Act addresses buildings and property. And the property can mean things like the fences, if there were unique fences, or that brick outhouse that was there, things like that. So it's not necessarily just the main building, of course. And there are places that have considered certain trees. I don't know if that's the case here in Brighton with its designations and its attributes listings, but I think it's worth mentioning, I guess, because we don't know that I haven't looked at all the designation attributes to see whether or not there are some landscape features that have been listed in the attributes or not. But and that's not to say that we may not have some future ones. So as long as our guide relates back to the attributes listing, I don't think there's anything problematic per se in mentioning trees and landscape features.
Thank you, Paul.
My overall concern is that when we put this permitting thing out, we don't create a desire for something that the owner doesn't feel strongly about. It should be preserved. After all, that's really what we're trying to do here is have things retained, features are retained, but the current owner is either feels themselves or is persuaded that these are important features that they want to see preserved into the future, not some outside source that
Yes, yeah, that's the intent. Yeah, that's the intent of the wording that I'm describing. So the wording will reflect that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, are there any other comments on the on 7.1, the application guide? Okay, so, would somebody care to move that we approve it as written, or is Paul volunteering to make some changes and bring it back to us? Is that what you're saying, Paul?
Yeah, so I'll make some changes. I can highlight them and so you can see where tracked,
Okay.
see how the changes were made, and it can be on the next agenda if you like.
Right. So as far as the minutes are concerned, we're you're saying having received comments from the committee, you're going to make some changes and it will be tabled for the next meeting or a subsequent meeting, I should say.
Can we approve it today with subsequent changes as discussed? Because it'll be the third time it's come back, right? So
yeah, well, I don't think
yeah.
I think the point is we're not approving it as written.
Okay.
What we need is a definitive document that covers everything that's been agreed to, and then that's the document we approve. I mean, we can certainly indicate in the minutes that the committee is looks favourably or something, whatever kind of wording on this guide. Subject, yeah, and then approval is subject to some minor additions or revisions rather. Does that sound good, guys? Everybody agree to it?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. No, I think what we've done is approved this, and we've suggested some minor changes, and it'll be brought to the next meeting. Do you agree with that, Paul?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy at whatever the committee so desires. I can very much do that. There's some easy changes to make. So if that's or if you want to just leave it to my discretion to have those changes as discussed reflected in the final document, I'm happy with either option. But I think the chair is wanting to see another version, so I can bring back another version with the changes in it. I have no one knocking on my door for a permit. So, and if someone does, then I will show them the draft.
Okay. Does that cover you, Robert?
Yeah.
You happy
That
with
sounds good.
Okay. Okay. So we'll move on to 7.2. And I don't know what that means. Culture and heritage finishings for Airbnbs.
What? Yeah.
I'll assist Mr. Chairman if I may. So the council has passed a zoning bylaw amendment and a licensing bylaw for short-term accommodations, otherwise known as Airbnbs. And one of the provisions in the licensing bylaw is a good host policy. And one of the good host provisions, and that's left fairly general, but one is intended there is to have some furnishings in the building on the inside that are of a higher quality or standard. And one of the opportunities there is perhaps for a short-term accommodation vendor to make available on its walls some heritage pictures of Brighton. So I thought if this is of interest to the committee, that there could be some sample images made available maybe on our website, and they can be directed to download those images, and then they can frame them and they can size them however they want for their interior decor. But I thought it would be a great way to promote the heritage of Brighton. It might take a little bit of work by a community member to select what images are probably the most appropriate and desirable, and maybe even have a little caption on them so that people know what they're looking at. But I thought that would be a good little resource for the operators. We expect there to be about maybe 40 operators, and so that would be about 40 operators with maybe some Brighton heritage on the walls, displayed on the walls.
What an excellent idea. That's fantastic. I
Great.
love that. Yeah. It's great. So how would we get these pictures?
Was hoping you might work with your archival committee. And they may
Yes.
have done a lot of that. And it may not just be pictures, it might be the 1878 Atlas of Northumberland County that has a portion of Brighton in it. It might be,
That's
I'm
true.
not familiar with all of the historical documents, but old maps are always very interesting to look at.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah, and it could be interim type, like maps from the 50s would be not necessarily heritage, but still cultural in nature to see the changes over time. And if it happens to be that there's pictures or maps of the same sites over many years, that would be interesting. And you know, the Ministry of Natural Resources aerial photo library has photos going way back to, you know, World War I era, and then fairly regularly different time periods since then. So there's lots of good stuff that could be gleaned.
Sounds great.
And on that point, I was working with Sherry Hamilton last year when the Chamber of Commerce was putting together a walking tour and a folding map of Brighton, comparable to the one they did 2 years ago for Crammy. And now I'm waiting to hear from the Chamber of Commerce when that's going to be available sometime this spring for Brighton. We highlighted 12 properties, mostly historical, and some tourist properties around Brighton, and using some of the text from the original walking tour. I haven't seen a proof yet, but it's supposed to be coming this summer or this spring. So that might, the one from Crammy has been framed and is being used as a poster. it's the same printer, same organization, that, so we might be able to offer that. But we also might be able to offer prints right out of the Brighton Digital Archive of the Presqu'île Hotel, and there's various ones we could use in that too. We could even suggest, we have a great print shop here in town, Willow, and if we determine what's copyright open or common use, we can suggest these, and they can follow up on their own and have certain printed out from the Brighton Digital Archive. And there's usually a paragraph attached to the images of information, and that can be printed along with the image. So we do have enough information easily accessible to any vendor that would have Airbnb and that would want it already available and right through brighton.ca. Other than that, something's coming soon.
Okay, well,
Mr. Chairman,
sure. Yes,
I was hoping that maybe we might get 2 or 3 members of the committee who'd be willing to work on getting a small inventory of photos and images and that sort of thing that could be put on our website, made available to the short-term accommodation operators. We have a bit of a short-term horizon on this, because once the official plan amendment that had to go to the county for a final approval, and I'm expecting that to be done this week if there are no appeals. So it would be useful that that we have something made available fairly soon.
Well,
I have a number of photos ready. Well, I mean, I can send them. Do I send them through you, Paul?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay.
And
There's a number of them on the, there's a website for Smithfield, and they have a number of beautiful photos there. So some of those have been printed out, and I have a lot of Smithfield, but I also have some of Brighton, and we can certainly get those from using the Brighton Digital Archives as well, who've really enhanced those photos quite a bit. So I would suggest that's what we do. So I could get in touch with maybe a member of the Brighton Digital Archives, unless you could do that, or I mean, I have no problem doing it. And
yeah, through the chair to Nancy, it would be great if you could do that. You know what you're looking for, I think, better than I would, and you know where to look better than I would.
yeah,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, well, all right. And when do you need this for, Paul?
Well, I suspect it'll be ongoing for a little bit, because you'll get that first low-hanging fruit of available resources made available, and then as time goes on, you might have some things that crop up. You say, gee, that would be great to include, because if we do get 40 operators, they're not going to want to duplicate images and whatnot all the time. Not that they're going to have the same visitors go to each one and notice the similarities or the sameness, but at the same time, we probably would like to promote as much different heritage of Brighton as possible too. And,
Yes. Yeah.
So,
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to contribute too. I've got probably, a couple thousand images around Brighton from Proctor House and wildlife and that, I can send you a thumbnail or send you something I could release as common use, and they can print it that way.
Very good. Thank you, Robert.
All right.
And the other part of the Good Host Plan involves, I said heritage and culture. So this, on the latter part to that culture, the idea there was maybe have some local artists also represented, even if just photos of their art and an acknowledgement of the artist, if they're so willing to have it portrayed that way. But if there were some local artists that members are familiar with who would like to see their art promoted through a photo of it on the wall, or that sort of thing, that would be was kind of the thinking behind some kind of a cultural contribution to writing through these operators as well.
Okay, I'm going to step in again. I'm on the board of the Brighton Visual Arts, and we've got about 45 photographers and painters in Brighton. And I'm working on a project myself for a property for a new mural in town with a new committee that might be a new committee in town. So I'll put some names together and I'll invite them to send them to you, Paul, if you
That's
don't mind.
great. That's great. And I'll have our website managers get us a new page for Brighton Heritage and have them posted.
Okay, sounds like a
Great.
plan. Does that do it for 7.2? Everybody happy? Okay, so it's basically Paul's going to go ahead and get material through Robert and other sources and make that available to Airbnb operators. Does that roughly summarize what we're doing, Paul?
I think it's a good summary, yes.
Okay. Well, with your permission, we'll move on to 7.3. Everybody happy with that?
Yes.
That's titled Heritage Designations. I'm not quite sure what's intended there. Oh, okay.
I think
So these would be additions.
Additions or just
Yeah.
making it.
Okay.
yes, Mr. Chairman. Just thought it was kind of a placeholder line that maybe we could have that maybe even as a standard line on our agendas, just
Oh, okay.
as a bit of a focus point for continued effort in seeking out additional properties for our list of designated properties. So I think having 7 is a good start, but just looking around, I'm thinking there's probably a lot of properties that are eligible, or if the committee members had their wish, there'd be quite a few more. So I'm hoping to have that on a line on our agenda so that the committee members can be thinking about getting some attributes described on some priority properties and working with the property owners with an encouragement of being designated.
Okay, so this is proposed suggestions for properties that should be added to the designation or listed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have quite a few listed properties as desirable for designation. In that Excel spreadsheet that you shared with me there not too long ago, you sent over, and there's quite a few properties on that. Only 7 of which are actually designated, but I just thought it'd be useful to maybe use that list to keep working with those landowners, and they do change over time, and see if there's any renewed interest by those landowners to see the property actually designated.
Right.
If I could say something, there's the list, and there's a lot of property owners who don't want to be listed, but they're heritage properties. And so it's kind of discouraging because it's taking, it's holding up what our process is to list what we have, to, sort of catalog that, or, if you will. I know it's encouraged to get the property owners on board, but it's not always possible.
No.
So what do you do? It looks like we certainly have some lovely heritage properties, but without that consent,
Sure. Yeah, there's not much.
all the permissions.
Right. I mean, ultimately, council does have the authority to apply a heritage designation without an owner's permission, but to my experience, most municipalities of our size, it's more only with the owner's permission that we go ahead with the designation. And
Listing, though, even listing is the problem. We can't even get to that step.
okay.
And I that was sort of included when this committee was set up by the previous council, that we would have to include the property owner's permission before listing, which isn't part of the Heritage Act, but encouraged. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not very accurate to the inventory of heritage properties that we actually have in Brighton.
Right.
And it's disappointing when you're on the committee. It sort of holds us back from doing what we should be doing.
Sure. And, I suppose I'm just thinking out loud here, but if we were to be active in doing an attribute listings on some of these prospective properties for designation, then we'll have our homework done, and then it's still something that can be promoted. Why is this a significant property? Here's the heritage attributes as described by committee members. And, and for example, I guess if a short-term accommodation operator sees as a guest and sees a lovely example of Brighton heritage and want to learn more about it, the caption allows them to go to their smartphone and look up all the attribute listings that the committee has described. Even whether it's listed or not, I think essentially we're promoting Brighton heritage, and maybe not safeguarding it is what a bylaw would do, but promoting it just the same.
Yeah.
Excuse me, is there a minimum age of a building before it can be listed?
No.
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 Okay, because there's a couple of people that I know have got very nice homes, but I don't think the building's that old, but they are heritage looking, so I was going to check that out. Yeah.
Well, I have one owner who's the architect of the home was really quite famous. And for that reason alone, she'd like it. So
yes. I didn't know if there was some sort of, had to be like 75 years old, 100 years old. No, no. Okay.
That's where we go to cultural value of the home,
okay.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An architect is cultural relevant.
Yeah, actually, any property could be, any structure could be of architectural importance.
Yeah.
Even if it's brand new, if it's built by qualified, like an architect that has a name and it complies to certain structural features, and it's no reason age should be a necessary requirement. Anyway, I think we're addressing right now we're addressing the issue that's always been the thing that's in front of us is how do we add more properties? We know there are a lot more heritage properties out there. It's a question of how we go about persuading owners to join us. And it's, in most cases, it's a question of knocking on the door and saying, you know, you've got a lovely house. How'd you like to have it on the list? And I've done a few of those personally, and I know Nancy has. And not always successful, but
No,
very often you get a very positive response. I mean, if you go up to them and say, how'd you like to have your property designated? I wouldn't recommend that, because
No,
the first thought in people's minds is, no, I don't want people telling me what I can and cannot do with my home. You know, so you start off, you admire it, and you suggest that you would probably, with all the work you've put into the property, you would probably like to see the next owner appreciating it. And here's a way you can do that. You know. Anyway, have we finished with 7.3 or?
I think so.
Okay. We'll move on to 7.4. Plaque Design. So I've come up with 2 new ones for us to consider. The Smithfield plaque that I'm grateful to Nancy. She gave me all the information, and always sort of cut and paste and so on and so forth. So I think that one is available for approval if the committee so desires, and we could get a quote on it. So
The photo on that, can we change that? Because I think we should use the, it'd be nice to be able to use the Smithfield Station or the Drury Mill that was on Smith Street, or even the Sash and Door Mill. There's so many beautiful pictures of Smithfield that we could use. And if I could just, there were a couple additions I'd like you to consider. And Dave, you did a fantastic job. I loved it. I gave you so much information. How you came up with that, I don't know. But anyway, it's very good. Well written. Thank you so much. I was going through another book, 2 Centuries of Change, I think it was. And it was written in 1967. And they referred to Smithfield as 1853 thriving community with a sawmill, 2 flour mills. These are things you added: Sash and Door Factory, and 2 hotels. I don't know if you got the 2 hotels. That's what was pretty important. But then the Grand Trunk Railroad then in 1853 was built right through it. So that was a vital link to getting the, you know, the commercial viability of Smithfield going. As well, they mentioned that later Smithfield became quite well known for its agriculture and research. And that was, I think that was the Ontario or Canadian. It was the experimental farm. It's now gone, but I don't know if that's something you want to include in that, or, but it was there for many years. It was the Smithfield Experimental Farm. So anyway, I just thought I'd talk to you about that and see what you think. If that's any way to, anyway. I'm sure if anybody could do anything with that, you could. So would you like the pictures, me to send some pictures to you, Dave?
well, sure, yeah. So in
Yeah.
other words, you got some other pictures.
Instead of
Yes,
the O'Hara Mill that you used.
Yeah.
I would rather see a picture of Smithfield in there.
Okay.
Yeah, because we have mill pictures that we could use.
Why don't you send the pictures that you'd recommend go on it? I mean, I
Okay.
just assumed because you sent me the pictures that you did, that that one would be okay. But if you, I'd suggest you'd send the ones you would recommend putting it on, send it to the whole committee, and we can
Okay.
have a vote on it,
Okay,
if that's okay. I mean,
yes,
obviously, most of us are going to be persuaded by whatever your opinion is, because you live there and you know your way around.
40 some odd years.
Okay. So I'll just minute then that the committee is supportive of going ahead with the Smithfield plaque, but we're going to get the chance to look at some more pictures and finalize the design. Does that
Okay.
sound okay? Everybody else okay with that?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then we've got the standard bank plaque. And I put that out, and it's very rough, and as you can see, it's a little bit different format to the others. You just got a rough version because I'm not so sure, and Nancy's certainly indicated to me that she's not so sure either, that we need another standard bank plaque, because there is, I forget, it was put up there by Sobeys, I think. Well, at least they paid for it. It's just a sort of reminder that there was a historic building there at one point. And I'm sort of thought around the whole thing since I put that out. And I'm wondering exactly, and I think, like I started off and I started with the standard bank, and I sort of described it as the entrance to the downtown area. And I thought to myself, well, really, I mean, the whole of the downtown area, or at least the main street from that junction up to Ontario Street, that is our main street. And there are a lot of heritage buildings along there. And why pick one, you know? And then I started thinking again, well, I've seen in different communities, like when we first started looking at heritage buildings on a municipal scale, we decided those that were designated would get a very expensive cast aluminum plaque for them. And then we thought, well, when we get the listed ones, we have a less expensive, mass-produced sort of plaque that just says it's a listed building. I've seen other communities where they have very similar to our plaques, but not as big, on each house, and it gives usually a historic picture and a fairly lengthy couple of paragraph description. And I'm wondering if we shouldn't look at along Main Street doing something like that, so that every heritage property down there has some kind of little marker that, I mean, it could be stripped right down to the bones. It could be just a marker with a scan code on it. And rather than reading something, you just scan it with your phone, and you get a whole chapter and verse on the property, old pictures and the whole thing, you know. I mean, it's only limited by your imagination. So I don't know, I'm just tossing that forward for the committee to consider. It'd be taken a different direction to where we've been over these first, I don't know how long we've been doing this, 10, 15 years. And it's probably an appropriate time to start looking at doing things differently, especially when we look at what we're trying to do on Main Street in terms of it being
Yeah.
recognized as a heritage throughway, really. And yeah, I just don't want to see us go too far into doing individual plaques until let's do a pilot on Main Street, because everybody seems to be thinking of Heritage Main Street now in Brighton, and it's also, we're looking at it from a total planning point of view, that we've got the other study going on on the street. So let's take advantage of that whole thing, and let's start thinking outside the box, basically, come up with a better way of putting our Main Street in front of the public in detail. So I don't know, I'd welcome your comments on that kind of approach. I mean, we can carry on doing what we've been doing, but I don't want to go too far down there and spend too much money on it and effort if we haven't got a clear picture of what we're going to do in the years to come. And I'd welcome your individual comments on that. If you think that's a bunch of old cobblers, then tell me.
Is
This isn't.
is that something that could be worked with the Digital Archive Committee, like a joint project?
It possibly might be. I don't really pull it through that far.
Yeah, well, we were going to get a meeting at some point with them.
Yeah. We are, but I'm not sure how quickly we're going to be able to do that.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
we could. Yeah.
I think we could work maybe with the DBIA and get at least those commercial blocks as exactly what you say. I love that idea. And I think that would be wonderful for tourism too, to include those with some marker that people could see when they're walking along the main street. Perhaps a pamphlet to go along with that. If again, you have to get in touch with the owners of these properties, but maybe a better way might be to have some sort of marketing strategy, more or less, yeah.
Well, it certainly opens up sort of a wider horizon.
Yeah.
If we're going to do something like that, it would have to be in conjunction with other committees. I'm just putting it up with something we should discuss. That maybe obviously we don't need to make a decision today, but
I think this is probably a good direction to go, looking at all the alternatives. I think if we might need some help from the GIS and the web developer to link information if we're having a walking tour with QR codes or something like that. So we may need to have a larger conversation and with the DBIA and the Chamber of Commerce. So this might be a good place to start. We come up with our ideas, make them solid, and then present them casually to the other groups and that, and create a heritage marketing idea or a heritage community idea that everybody can participate at their level, each group. Because we've got a lot of people coming to Brighton.ca for information, and the digital archive, Brighton Digital Archive, is well received and got some information, but we need a unified signposts along, especially if, when we get to the heritage designation for the main street and downtown. I think this is a good starting point. So, and
Do you have any comments, Paul, on how that might dovetail with what you were doing in terms of research on we have the contract with the young lady from Peterborough.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, well, I guess my first thought was that you're very forward looking on that, so I thought it was a good point. Then I also, my other first thought was it might be useful to have some kind of a plaque almost as a first hook or a gateway plaque. So a plaque indicating that it's very evident visually that, yeah, here's a place that you can grab your smartphone and look for that QR code and see a lot more. So I think it may require a redesign just to have that first, oh yeah, this is a place, here's something that we want to look at. Have, a plaque that does represent that first hook and attention getters, so that we can pull people into the programming and the curating that is about heritage for the Main Street area.
Yeah, and it doesn't cost anybody anything to join in. Like you can have a station out in front of your property. You're not designated anything. You're not prevented from doing anything. It just tells the story of that particular site, and how that fits into the overall picture of a Main Street small Ontario town.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah.
So why don't we just do it?
Yeah, well, we pretty much can.
All right.
Putting our talent to work on and our money to work where we want it to be, rather than just dotting it around all over the place,
Yeah.
Like I'm really I was really keen on the plaquing that we've done when we did it, but I'm not so keen now because you could walk past most of the houses that we value dearly and not even see it's got a plaque, because it's right up by the house. And being a small town that grew up in the early days when people had a nice big front lawn and all that, it's behind the bushes now.
Yeah.
Unless you've started a business there, and then you want to open up the side of your property so you can advertise your business. Anyway, okay. It sounds like that could work out fine. So we'll move forward on that through Paul's initiative, basically mapping the downtown there. So, okay, so anything else to discuss on plaques at the moment? No, we'll move on then to 7.5, Tornado Task Force. I have no idea what that is.
So, thank you. Hello again. A member of this committee is on the Tornado Task Force, which is
From Rena? Rena, I think just the angle that you're at to your microphone, it's hard to catch everything.
Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Perfect. Okay. So through council's direction, they would like a member of this committee to sit on the tornado task force, which will help with the 50th anniversary not commemorating, but just talking about what happened 50 years ago regarding the tornado. I don't have too much more information other than that in terms of when it will meet. We're still looking at several other committees that will also hopefully donate a member for this task force. So I was just going to see if anybody was interested and if the committee could put a motion forward in order to have one of these have an individual from the committee sit on that task force.
I'd be interested in sitting on that committee. But is anybody else? Maybe somebody else would like?
No, you're
Come on,
welcome
Susan.
No, you volunteered first. I think the name is really quite unique. Tornado Task Force.
Well, since Nancy, that you are a total tornado as far as promoting Brighton's heritage buildings, I think that will be wonderful if you take it on.
Thank you. Okay, I will do that. And
So
I make a motion.
I'm going to vote for that.
Yeah.
Everybody else going to vote for that? Okay.
Yeah.
You got a job, Nancy. Another
so
one.
someone will get in touch with me then?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, great. Thanks, Marina. Looking forward to that.
Okay, then. I'm making the motion. So a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay.
You have a second. All those in favor? All right. Okay, carried. Okay.
97 Ontario Street site.
So 7.6 we added at the beginning is annual heritage conference, runs from June the 16th to June the 18th. Where is it, Nancy?
It's in Brockville. It's later than it usually was in the past. Like it was usually the last week of May, but they've moved it now into June, mid-June.
Anyway,
there is early bird prices, but
yes. Yes. So we are we do have it in the budget, I think.
yes, there is a budget for it.
Next year,
Yeah.
Nobody's gone for the past 2 or 3 years.
No, there hasn't been one yet.
Have you ever been to it, Paul?
No, I have not. I haven't been to the Heritage Conference. I usually go to the planning conferences, and I usually have a heritage component in many of them. So I'm able to do 2 birds with 1 stone. So these other more general conferences.
Well, does anybody wish to volunteer to go?
My problem is a commitment with a family member visiting that time. Can you just go for 1 day, 1 night, or is it like is it a 2-day or 3-day event, or?
They usually start on Friday.
Yeah.
And then they
the 16th is a Thursday. Yeah.
Thursday. Yeah, they may have like a car rally or something like that on the Thursday. And but I think the actual registration would be anywhere from the Thursday, but usually Friday morning. You get a lot of municipal and city staff, and yeah, that's usually when I have in the past found that the seminars actually started is on the Friday, and the press and that sort of thing, and Saturday as well.
There's no huge urgency. it costs extra after May the 16th.
Yeah, so I'm interested in going if no one else is. I'd like to see other people go besides me. I think this would be my 7th conference.
Yeah.
And it looks like a really good one, full of information. But and I don't mind going. I'd love to. So
I would have jumped in and gone, but I've got 2 conferences back to back in Toronto that weekend, the Thursday and Friday, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So perhaps next year.
yeah, they're great conferences. It's a good time to network and what other people are doing in their communities. Yeah.
Why don't we leave it for now? And Susan, you can decide whether you want to go. You could go for the day, or you can go for the whole conference.
Yeah.
It's
Well, here's another idea. If you just get the one conference ticket and maybe somebody can go on the Friday, somebody can attend on the Saturday. That would be another idea. Because the seminars are both days. Yeah.
I'd have to get back to you, but I guess I have to make a decision hopefully by May the 16th, you said?
You want to save that and get the early bird for sure.
Yeah. The days before.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so when will be our next meeting? Okay, so let's leave it that you're going to have to decide before May the 9th.
Yeah.
And we can vote.
Yeah, just let us know.
Yeah. So we can, yeah. Oh. Okay, so that's everything I've got.
What's that? 97 Ontario Street. 97.
Through the chair to committee, that item there is what we're doing with our subdivisions and other development projects. When we want to initiate public engagement, we take staff report to council, give them some of the conceptual information that we've been having received and having conversation with the proponent of the development, and then getting authorization from council to initiate that public engagement. But you probably see a little more consistently going forward that when we initiate public engagement, it'll also include a circulation to our advisory committees, and Heritage, of course, being one of our main advisory committees to council. So Heritage, it will be given a notice of proposed projects. So will the Sustainability Advisory Committee and Rural Advisory Committee, etc. So it's just on the outside, maybe not so outside, but on the chance or the event that committee feels there's some relevant heritage issues with a development, then it gives Heritage Advisory Committee an opportunity to identify those issues for council.
Oh, great.
I don't know that in this one I'm not sensing that there's a heritage issue here. It's a vacant lot, and it's mostly very recent development adjacent to it. But those are just my first observations. But the committee knows the area better than I do, and so it's open for comment.
I can't figure out where it is. So
97 Ontario was just south, on the same side south of the trailer park of and just north of Mohawk Avenue in Algonquin. You know, what's known as the Ruse subdivision. So it's just in between there. It's an infill lot between those two developments.
okay, all right. I know where you're talking about. Yeah.
Looks interesting. It looks like that might be the way infill projects can go, where they're doing the townhouses, the clump townhouses, and that might be save some more land rather than have all detached homes and that, and maybe they can build them a little quicker that way too. And I hear there might be some social commitment by the development too.
So do you want the Heritage Committee to let you know if there's any heritage concerns on that by a certain day, or what is?
Yeah, so they're just, they still have to do the site plan control agreement. So they'll be bringing forward a site plan control application and whatnot. So there is time for community members to
Okay,
make comments. And so maybe, you know, if we bring it back to, you know, if community members have any comments now, that was really the intent, that maybe if there was any motion other than to receive and file, or to just simply to receive the information, or if there are specific comments, you can make those and capture those within your motion. But I don't know that the timing of this application going forward would be that there will be opportunity to comment before the next appearance before council. It could very well. So if committee members want to bring it forward for comment next agenda, or just through, and not representing the committee, but representing their individual comments, then can just email myself or Marina.
So what's the?
but it's only on the one side though, is that right, Paul? It's not
That's
of
right.
Ontario Street, it's on the east side, I guess.
Correct.
Is it?
That's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. There's
Okay.
14 townhouses total. I think 2 5s and a 4-unit building, and there's visitors parking on site, and they're going to be rental, not ownership, and they're single story.
Okay. All right.
Do we wish to make any comment on that at the moment?
No, not at this time. I'm gonna have a look at it though. If
You
that's
go to
okay.
Okay.
And
Would we- Sorry, go
I-
ahead.
I was just going to say that our website should still have the posting up with other additional information. That's an elevation drawing, so you can see that they're one story, and that sort of thing.
Okay, so can we leave it that committee members will consider the implication of that, and where necessary take a look, and we'll consider whether we want to make any comment at the next meeting? Does that give us enough time, Paul?
That'll be fine, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So does somebody want to propose that and second it? We can vote on it. Okay. then,
Okay, I'll propose that,
okay, so Nancy proposing and Robert seconded. So all in favour?
okay,
Okay, that's carried. Okay, I think that's everything. So we motion to adjourn?
When's the next meeting? The next meeting date?
May 9th.
May 9th? Okay,
May
thank you.
9th.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
So did we get a proposer? No, we still need a proposer to adjourn in a seconder.
Oh, okay, I propose.
Thank you, Nancy. Seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
all in favour? Carried.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.